Welcome everybody to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Study, study, study. They call this Christmas Eve. We know it's all a joke. You were raised and trained to, what am I going to tell my children? Is there a Santa or no? Because we're all supposed to pretend. But anyway, we've got some Bible to go over. That's not clickbait, but kind of clickbait about that Scientology. Get down to it. What it's all brand new too. They were hanging out together. L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, studying the remnants of the guy they knew, Aleister Crowley. This is all such recent history. I've really got nothing better to do. This is all I do. So I've got something new. I want to teach it. I got to show disclaimers. I got to do the other thing. If anybody wants to come in, tell me and I'll send an invite. You hear from that RJ. I talked to him a lot last night and we got a lot figured out, man. So much that I remembered to use the fair use disclosure. Exposing a lie, trusting your articulation, expressing it correctly, fair usely disclaimering it is all part of the show today. We're going to be studying the languages and whatnot. You can be practicing on your inflections, you know. We're even going to study the pantomime. You might remember that movie True Romance with all those big movie stars, Dennis Hopper and Christian Slater, Christopher Walken, James Garfino. A lot of big stars. And they talked about the pantomime. We will too. So hold on to your hats. I don't think I have any big long display of pictures. I have this. Scientology and the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. I already knew I was going to do a show today and maybe another one tonight because, you know, it's the shortest day of the year. We're all supposed to have cabin fever. We're all tired. We know we're on a narrow road. We want to know about their focused brief therapy. And yes, they're probably going to have to talk about it. John Anderson, 6.6. Did we talk about that? Yeah, we already talked about that. So I only had that one? No. There's the picture. These are famous people who are Scientologists. And they've got a lot of good reasons if they haven't had that substance given to them known as faith, that substance of things hoped for. It gives us a, hey, that looks familiar. Good. Got that out of the way. What's this?
Wanted most. India Oxenberg. Some former members of NXIVM recall Allison being exuberantly happy at all times, while others recall her being like a viper, ready to strike at any minute. Now Allison was about to strike at India.
What?
Called being at cause. Being at cause was something Keith taught, claiming that people are responsible for everything in their lives, all successes and failures, all feelings and reactions. Keith taught that a person cannot blame anyone or anything for their suffering, and that there are no victims, only people who have attached negative meaning to an event, person, or thing. Basically, it's a fancy way to victim blame, stating that a victim is partially or fully responsible for the actions of offenders.
And if you're living in poverty right now, it's because you didn't stack enough silver. or your daddy didn't stack you something. Oh no, this is all the hand of God. And, the poor in this world can be happier than these people who are striving to be rich because they don't have a choice to do anything else.
Told those who took his courses that NXIVM could save the world by training people to become ethical leaders, and that he could enlighten people to have more control and understanding about who they really were, thus creating a better world. Keith claimed,
Look at that. That's the smiling girl that, this turned into a sex cult. He's supposed to be a celibate monk to the world. In the meantime, these girls are branding themselves. He started with Amway. How new is everything? How new is Amway? How new is their psychology? How does this tie in with L. Ron Hubbard and everything else? You'll see.
he was celibate, like a monk, but this would turn out to be anything but true. At best, Keith was a life coach with wild marketing claims. At work,
Wow. Let's get, where did he sell the Amway? What's this?
she performs NLP techniques. She said, quote,
NLP, neuro linguistic pronunciation or something like that. No, it's not pronunciation, but they think that certain people that go to their schools are going to learn how to talk, and then they can tell other people that you don't need Jesus, but there is some sort of metaphysical afterlife, and Blavatsky, blood, feel the pain.
by talking to the person. It's a talking type of therapy that acts as a conscious and unconscious process. It's a model for human behavior change, unquote. In this deposition, Nancy admitted to only having worked for 1 year as a registered nurse as she was studying and teaching hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming full-time. The father of NLP, John Grinder, wrote in his 1979 book that NLP will, quote, get you almost everything, unquote.
Who wouldn't want that if you're not changed by God? These things were real. They did this in front of the world.
Many of them even lived together. Getting to go on a midnight walk with Keith was considered an honor. NXIVM members were amazed at how little Keith slept and yet still managed to be so productive. They claimed this had to do with his high intelligence. But unbeknownst to most of them,
it was a trick. It was a scam. So they worked this girl here, try to recruit. It was an Amway
rank
deal.
Of Proctor, where they got
Amway's
to talk to
new.
Keith directly. Members were made to watch many movies about people who were proud to die for their beliefs and sacrifice themselves for a greater cause. In 2010, Allison Mack made the public announcement she was leaving Smallville as a series regular. But out of respect to her loyal fans, Allison stated she would come back for several episodes in the final season to tie up her character's legacy properly. Allison didn't give a reason for leaving Smallville, but in 2012, she auditioned for a show called Wilfred, starring Elijah Wood. Allison received a recurring...
How weird is this? Some of you guys think like, oh, that was such a weird movie, and you were drawn to it. They're trying to keep people off the narrow road. They expose psychology's weird. That's what this Scientology is going to be about.
Which meant master over slave women. Several women of Keith's inner circle, including Allison, were instructed to recruit other women, usually from Jeunesse, and they were instructed to lie to their DOS recruits and say that Keith was not involved in any way with DOS. India recalls Allison telling her about DOS and saying it was, quote, women mentoring women in a very specialized, deep way, and that it would push you past the areas you hadn't yet allowed yourself to grow, unquote. India Oxenberg is the daughter of Hollywood actress Catherine Oxenberg and the granddaughter of royalty, as her grandmother is Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia. At age 19, India had chosen NXIVM over college, and over the years, as India attempted to rank higher in NXIVM, she used up her entire inheritance from her grandfather. Now, in an effort to get paid what Keith owed her, Allison recruited India into DOS, telling India it would help her rank higher in NXIVM, how India so desperately wanted.
you think they believed it? I mean, it's drama. It's crazy. It's the people that end up in public are sex-filled maniacs.
Now, to step in and do something about Nexium, the FBI finally got involved and opened an investigation. Only 1 month after the New York Times article was released, Keith fled to Mexico in November of 2017. Allison tried to lay low and hardly left her apartment. India recalls Allison becoming paranoid of people watching her or the media finding her.
Why wouldn't you?
By spring of 2018,
A little bit more.
lonely in a Mexican villa that cost $10,000 a week to rent, Keith had his inner circle of top DOS women fly to Mexico for what he called a recommitment ceremony, where they would partake in a group adult act, if you know what I mean. Allison Mack and Nikki Klein attended, and it would be Nikki who accidentally exposed Keith's whereabouts, alerting the FBI, who had been privately monitoring her and the other high-ranking DOS women who were close to Keith. Nikki had taken to Instagram and posted a picture while in Puerto Vallarta,
Wow.
a picture the FBI was able to geotag. This led them straight to Keith.
Okay, so this is what women of the world, even if you're famous, something drives you.
Her
I
lawyers
don't
now working
know.
with
I'm
federal
not a woman.
prosecutors to cut a deal in a sex trafficking case.
And that seems to be all over the news. Am I correct, Mundo, on that? I captured a youth from Succoth, caught a young man because he was yet a youth. Banar. Proverbs 20, verse 11. Even a young man is known by his actions, whether his conduct is pure and upright. So that's a na'ar. Kind of vague on the youth part. I'm looking, there are certain times. I know the prefrontal cortex does not fully mature until a man is 25 years old. So, I mean, we're all growing longer than we thought, long before we're big enough to spike the football or do it, Yeah. Here's a good one about life and women. Before we go any further on that sex craze stuff, let's just get 2 chapters of Proverbs out of the way. Chapter 30, verse 1. We don't know much about Agar or Jakeh, but this is their oracle. The man declares, I am weary, O God, I am weary, O God, and worn out. Surely I'm too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I knowledge of the Holy One. Who has ascended into heaven and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fist? Who has wrapped up the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is his son's name? Surely you know. Every word of God proves true. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. Do not add to his words, lest he rebuke you and you be found a liar. 2 things I ask of you. Deny them not to me before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lying. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is needful for me, lest I be full and deny you and say, Who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. Do not slander a servant to his master, lest he curse you and you be held guilty. There are those who curse their fathers and do not bless their mothers. There are those who are clean in their own eyes, but are not washed of their filth. There are those, how lofty are their eyes, how high their eyelids lift. There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, the needy from among mankind. The leech has 2 daughters. Give and give. 3 things are never satisfied. 4 things never say enough. Sheol, the barren womb, the land never satisfied with water, and fire that never says enough. The eye that mocks a father and scorns to obey a mother will be picked out by the ravens of the valley and eaten by the vultures. 3 things are too wonderful for me, for I do not understand the way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on a rock, the way of a ship on the high seas, the way of a man with a virgin. This is the way of an adulteress. She eats and wipes her mouth and says, I have done no wrong. Under 3 things the world, the earth trembles. Under 4 it cannot bear up a slave when he becomes king, a fool when he is filled with food, an unloved woman when she gets a husband, a maid servant when she displaces her mistress. We hear a lot about that happening in history. 4 things on earth are small, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people, not strong, yet they provide their food in the summer. The rock badgers are a people not mighty, yet they make their homes in the cliffs. The locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank. The lizard you can take in your hands, yet it is in kings' palaces. 3 things are stately in their tread, 4 are stately in their stride. The lion, which is mightiest among the beasts and does not turn back from any. The strutting rooster, the he-goat, and a king whose army is with him. If you have been foolish, exalting yourself, or if you have been devising evil, or if you have been devising evil, put your hand on your mouth, for pressing milk produces curds, pressing the nose produces blood, and pressing anger produces strife. Now, there's never going to be, the Bible teaches women have to be slaves like Nexium. They got it all wrong, man. They got it all wrong. This is the way it should go down. This is something that a king was taught by his mother. The words of King Lemuel. An oracle, another oracle, 2 chapters in a row that are oracles. This one, a mother taught to her son. Verse 2. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. It is not for kings of Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine or rulers to take strong drink. At least they drink and forget what has been decreed and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. That sounds a lot like Psalm 82, doesn't it? Something that those other bad Elohim did not do. Verse 10, the excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband's trust in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works them with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength. She makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hand to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. We've all seen the picture of those people, how they lived in the star forts and stuff. Her husband is known in the gates, and he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchants. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. That next chapter of Ecclesiastes 1, that's good too, but I don't know. Sun rises, sun goes down, hasten to the place where it rises, but we know it just means shows up. Wind blows from the south, streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, they flow again. All the streams don't run to the sea anymore. Did you know that? Not since Armageddon. Not since there are now endorheic basins all over the earth and all part of the mud flood situation. Oh, we already read that one. Bob. He was talking about the pantomime. Just to give you the background of it. The next scene, Mafia Capo Christopher Walken arrives with his crew at Dennis Hopper's trailer house and asks, where's your son? Where's Christian Slater? Where's he at? And then finally, he's not going to tell him, and they're going to question him. So he says, Dennis Hopper, I don't know anything. And he goes, Sicilians are great liars, the best in the world. I'm a Sicilian. My father was the world heavyweight champion of Sicilian liars. From growing up with him, I learned the pantomime. There are 17 different ways a guy can do, 17 different things a guy can do when he lies to give himself away. A guy's got 17 pantomimes, a woman's got 20, but a guy's got 17. If you know them, like you know your own face, they beat lie detectors all to hell. Now, what we got here is a little game of show and tell. You don't want to show me nothing, but you're telling me everything. I know you know where they are, so tell me before I do some damage you can't walk away from. And wrote this, a young man that just learned how to, I just watched movies a lot, and then he got famous.
Now, what we got here is a little game of show and tell. You don't want to show me nothing, but you tell me everything. I know you know where they are, so tell me. Before I do some damage, you won't walk away from them.
Could I want those Chesterfields now.
Sure.
Match. No, no. I'm about to go.
Now this is a decode, and that's why I'm, you know,
You're Sicilian,
I
right?
did that fair use disclaimer, because is this part of history that is the big cover up that they're hiding? And when I say they, I mean the adrenochrome drinking, Pizzagate hiding, probably in the Scientology, the Republicans, the Democrats, but they've got the world full. They're hiding something, and they pantomime this, pantomime that.
About history. I find that shit fascinating. Here's a fact. I don't know whether you know or not. Sicilians were spawned by niggers.
Come again?
No, it's a fact. Yeah. You see, Sicilians have black blood pumping through their hearts. And no, if you don't believe me, you can look it up. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you see, the Moors conquered Sicily, and the Moors are niggers. See, way back then, Sicilians were like wops from northern Italy. They all had blonde hair and blue eyes. But, well, then the Moors moved in there, and, well, they changed the whole country. They did so much fucking with Sicilian women, that they changed the whole bloodline forever. That's why blonde hair and blue eyes became black hair and dark skin. You know, it's absolutely amazing to me to think that to this day, hundreds of years later, that Sicilians still carry that nigger gene. Now this, I'm quoting history. It's written. It's a fact. It's written.
I love this guy.
No. Your ancestors are niggers. Hey. Yeah. And your great grandmother fucked a nigger. Oh, yeah. And she had a half nigger kid. Now, if that's a fact, tell me, am I lying? 'Cause you.
So what was he talking about? Moors conquering Sicily? How do you spell conquer? Conquer. I don't see them using the N word like it's a bad thing. I think it's all tongues and all tribes. I just really think there's something to this, that ever since we've been programmed with the Sigmund Freud version of Darwinism and their psychology, let 5-year-olds take Ritalin. No wonder Scientology had an argument and could convince people that haven't had that substance of faith given to them. I don't think it's that hard to understand. They're talking about the same people, Byzantine control, Syracuse, Sicily. Is Syracuse that's where they got the groves that became the academy. These are Bible places. We know how they lived. We know there was no real colors back then, and if there was any, like the pure white described in the Bible, had to run around saying unclean. There's no proof that their noses were falling off. They were just white. I guess. I could be wrong about that, but I don't, like, nobody's ever shown me where like, you're wrong. Here's where their nose fell off. It was what we call that leprosy today, some sort of like that flesh-eating disease. Anyway, Syracuse. So that was just a part of it. What's this? We got to just go, and then there's going to be some more Bible at the end. So what is the pantomime? Good to think with. The chapter explores the cultural place held by the idea of pantomime. See, pantomime isn't those guys wearing black shirts acting like I'm stuck in a box you can't see, or it's really windy over here. Look, I'm walking into the wind, man. And how come you're not blowing away like me? It's not that. The idea of pantomime looks at the respects in which the pantomime proved itself good to think with. So it's not only about spotting lies, it's a part of that rhetoric for the elite with the sophists. Which sophists, for money, they would argue anything. They don't care if abortion's right or wrong. You give them enough money and they'll tell you it's right. You give them enough money, they'll tell you it's wrong. That's their polemic. Something. More pantomime, more YouTube. Oh, I was listening to the Bible, but I wanted to show you what's, I didn't have anything to do after I was not watching my shows. So I got up to date. I had to pull this up so I could show you that clip. I was watching this one. That was kind of cool. They admitted they were lying liars. But you're not surprised about that. Now, this was weird. I don't know why. I wanted to click on it because that wasn't the thumbnail I saw. I saw this really just like mud flood house where they're faking Christianity, worshiping ISIS. But the building, right? This is in good shape. Where is this? Wisha. I think I didn't record too much.
Christ is born to us. Let us rejoice.
So this is their Christmas thing. We're just marveling that they want us to believe that they built that, 200 years ago, because that's the way they rolled. And we could do it again today, but we're giving our money to the poor. We're working for the good of the people. Well, some people, think that it'll help everybody if you let their children choose their sex. And remember that whole craze right there before COVID. It was right before COVID. What are you going to name your baby? Are you going to have a non-binary baby? Or what was the term for that? Come on, help me out. There was a term. They were really on a roll, man. Look at it. That's the Swiss Guard. They've been wearing that since the takeover because they found these uniforms. They found these buildings. They put them on, joined the Freemasons, and said, don't worry, we got people telling us what to do. I watched this and, they zoom in a couple of the towers when they get to the other part. But the floor is something I kept going back to. Look at, is that the Pope or somebody else that's getting wheeled in? But this floor doesn't mean anything to anybody today except very few. To us, it means it's a mystery why they do it. It's probably a solar calendar or something, but the whole floor was that. And these chairs are foldable. They bring them in because they weren't part of the structure. Part of the structure was the whole building. Now, there are a couple of spinning, there they are. Look at those pillars. You talk about a mud flutter. We don't get to see the inside of this one in that high definition very often. So look at that spinning pillars there. They got Isis, their Virgin Mary, their Columbia, their Matilda, right? And see, they're giving what God wants, the prayers. He doesn't mind incense and stuff and prayers, but not to. You got to pray like the Bible teaches us to pray. But so they've just found all this stuff. They're using it. They can't afford to keep it up all the time. A little more procession. So this is Christmas time in the city. Take a little bit off, feel good about yourself. Look at me, Mom. I went to church today, and now what? More socks? Okay, sure. Let's play dominoes. Let's play Risk. Let's play Monopoly. Oh, you just hard to imagine what they do to those children from what I've heard about those altar boys and what they won't do, So that's not the one I wanted to show you. I didn't really, some of these, if you just scroll over them for a second, they think you're watching them. I did watch a little bit of that. This was not what I thought it was. Hey, that whole Duger thing, that was really weird. Super weird.
Discreetly covering the parts of the body that can be alluring. But Paul and Peter's treatment of this subject both focus more on expense and display. These are elements that we must not miss. So as we read these verses, note how many details of these verses are about cost or expenditure. Paul writes, I desire, therefore, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel with propriety and moderation, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly clothing, but which is proper for women professing godliness with good works. And Peter writes in the New King James, do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. This is another point where the editors have added an unhelpful word. This merely is not in the Greek. It's added by the editors. And if you think about a literal translation, do not let your adornment be outward, rather let it be the hidden person. You can see that merely actually totally changes the meaning of the verse. Peter is not saying it's okay to have outer adornment as long as you have inner adornment too. Rather, he's saying, don't adorn yourself outwardly. Instead, seek inner adornment, the hidden beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Moderation, gold, pearls, costly clothing, and fine apparel. All of these terms point to being modest in expenditure, to spending a reasonable, not a large, amount of money in attiring ourselves. This idea of moderation dovetails with adornment. Often when we seek to adorn ourselves, we want more and we spend more. More dresses, more shoes, more sweaters, more scarves. In its essence, an adornment is something extra. It's something unnecessary. We need shoes to protect our feet. We need a coat or a sweater to keep us warm from the cold. Adornments are those extra elements, those decorative elements that we don't really need. And I think they're also, I think this verse also speaks to piling on more and more of something to have a reasonable number of.
Excuse me. Sorry, young lady. I was just stepping all over her presentation because I wanted to see if I'm still sharing. Okay, I'm still sharing. And I wanted to go to a Bible verse because while she was talking, I know the Bible has this verse in this chapter. And I think it's chapter 3, where it talks about the different things that they wear. Is it here's what you do when you're I want women to wear hair coverings. Nobody does. I'm still going to keep preaching, But here's the whole deal. In Isaiah 3, verse 16, the Lord says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, they walk around with outstretched necks, glancing wantingly with their eyes, mincing as they go. And I do have to admit, in my weakness, that's one of my favorite things to watch women do. Is just mincing as they go, tinkling with their feet. Therefore, verse 17 starts, it continues, the Lord will strike with a scab the heads of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will lay bare their secret parts. In that day, the Lord will take away their adornments, the anklets, the headbands, the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets, the scarves, the headdresses, the armlets, the sashes, the perfume boxes, the amulets, the signet rings, nose rings, festal robes, the mantles, the cloaks, the handbags, the mirrors, the linen garments, the turbans, and the veils. No more perfume. No more well-set hair. Sorry, rich robe gone. Because I guess it's just, don't go walking around too proud.
Blouses or dresses so that you can wash them and still have a clean one, as opposed to a closet that's crammed full of extra clothes. I was dressed like the world, and I was wanting the attention and approval of boys, and totally unaware of the heartache that dating would bring. I know that God saw me spending excessive money on clothes for years, looking to be approved of by the in crowd, and knowing that friendships built on those grounds don't satisfy. And I know that he grieved for me. God sees all the women seeking to live up to the world's beauty and fashion standards, and he wants to free them from that senseless burden. He wants to protect our future and current marriages. He wants to protect the girls and women who are called to be single. Why does God call us to cover our heads? We have the honor of testifying to the beautiful way in which God made the world. That male and female, and even male leadership and women's submission is a beautiful thing that leads to peace and health and order when it's done in love and with hearts resolved to serve our King.
I just thought that it's like, if God ever wanted, you think that you're ever going to have me be like, hey, get a brand. That's what you need. I don't think so. That's just.
So this is what the man's garment changes to, from being that long robe that we saw before. Suddenly the upper garment breaks off kind of at the hips. And instead of the long robe, he's wearing hose, almost like today's leggings. And then the article of clothing called the codpiece is what's covering his genitalia. And obviously it's serving to like accentuate, not to hide. This is what people wore around the time of Chaucer, of Shakespeare. And it's true that this started more at the court. So it was more the wealthy people as now that kind of pushed the fashions forward. And then for the women, all of a sudden you see necklines going way down and chests being exposed. For the first time, you're seeing like cleavage. So I found this just utterly fascinating that there's such a consensus for most of history of what acceptable clothing is. And all of a sudden there's a big change. Honestly, I think since the emergence of greater fashion in the 14th century, okay, here we go. So this is a reconstruction of prehistoric clothing. This is female clothing that was discovered in Jutland, which is modern day Denmark, from 2000 BC. So you can see it's actually not that different from a lot of dresses people would wear today. Loose top, long skirt. This is Sumerian clothing from the ancient Near East, the Mesopotamian region. This is a Peloponnesian woman from the 6th century BC, and here you see we have a head covering. This is another Greek woman from the Hellenistic period, so closer to the time of the Bible, of the New Testament. And again, she has her head covered in a long, loose, draped garment. This is the Empress Theodora. She was the Empress of Byzantium with her husband Justinian. These mosaics are in Ravenna, Italy, and they're contemporary with her lifetime. So the women are
the history of Theodora, she was one of these sketchy, worked her way up from being a actress. Yeah, and I think that meant was like what my professor was implying is that meant prostitute back then.
on the right of the picture, and you can see they all have these long, loose garments and head coverings. Interestingly, men at this time also wore robes.
It was
which
the
we'll get to,
golden age,
because there's
ruled
a
with a
change
rod
in
of
that,
iron. They had to pretend.
further down the line. This is the Countess Matilda on the right, again, head covering and a loose garment, and these are men on the left. This one is a bishop. The one in red with the staff is a bishop. Another medieval picture, the one on the right is a woman, and on the left is a man in his robe. This is 19th century Japanese female dress. And so this is what I was mentioning about traditional societies, that there are some cultures like India, China, Japan that opened up to the Western influences of fashion much later. And so they continued to wear their traditional dress even into the more recent centuries. But again, you see very loose, like a long kind of skirt type garment. And then this is from the Manchu people who are found in Mongolia and northeastern China. And again, very similar form of head covering.
That's a big part of history.
Finally,
that Manchu, the Manchurian Candidate, Chiang Kai-shek, Mao, the Revolution, the John Birch Society, Germany, Russia, Great Britain, and the United States, all ganging up on Japan the day they supposedly dropped the atomic bomb and attacked Japan's largest army that was defending their precious property in China. That is a segue.
Indian salwar kameez. This is still worn today. So a long, loose kind of tunic, a short dress with very loose pants underneath. Hindu women traditionally cover their heads when their husbands are present, and so the shawl could be used as a head covering. And Christian women in India will often use this as their head covering during church, even today. So in the mid 14th century and after in Europe, there's a big change that happens. This is from a secular source. It's called 20,000 Years of Fashion by Francois Boucher. And he writes, the great innovation in Europe after the mid 14th century is the abandonment of the long flowing costume common to both sexes. So what he's saying here is that before 14th century Europe, both men and women wore some kind of very loose flowing garment. And suddenly there's a change around the middle of the 14th century. He writes also, it was then that the fashion designer made his appearance. This was in the form of artists beginning to draw clothes to be actually made.
And so that's going to put that right at the end of the golden age. But what else did I have in that history? Oh, that's from the other day. Do you see this one? Paul, is this really Donald Trump's pastor?
When I walk on White House grounds, God walks on White House grounds. When I go into the dry cleaner, that dry cleaning place becomes holy. I had every right and authority to declare the White House as holy ground because I was standing there, and where I stand is holy.
It was about an assignment to say no to President Trump would be saying no to God. And I won't do that.
You need to send in $3,500. You need to send in $35,000. You need to send in that $100,000 check. If you do not write that P.O. box and you do not call that toll-free number and you do not become a ministry of sustainer, you will never see sustainment in your life, and your dream will die. Your call will die.
I think this is not the good girl. It's quite I just stumbled on it, and oh my goodness.
Her soft and feminine qualities she was known for had been molded by Randy into a more assertive and dynamic public persona.
Is that's how Billy Graham, that's Hitler, that's a learned behavior. Watch her hands. Let's watch it in slow-mo because it's
the couple renamed their church to Without Walls Ministry. Meanwhile, Paula had become well established as a preacher in her own right, and in many ways, she was more popular than her husband. Because of the teachings in a book Christians believe as sacred text, pastorship was, and in many ways still is, a male-dominated industry, which
that's
set
the other
Paula
guy.
apart from her competition.
Holstein.
She was frequently asked to appear at
That's
churches in
Paula
other
White.
states and nationwide conferences.
Bravo.
By then, her soft and feminine qualities she was known for had been molded.
Out. Look at that. She could. Whoa! And step. Is that a parasite doing that? I don't think so. I'm not down with that whole parasite demon stuff. We need to talk, people. That's weird, though, right? You see her jerking around like a crazy woman there?
Popularity across the evangelical community.
I gotta see it one more time.
Was frequently asked to appear at churches in other states and nationwide conferences. By then, her soft and feminine qualities she was known for had been molded by Randy into a more assertive and dynamic public persona. Her increased
I don't know if we got the full intro on when they met.
Dean was a handsome, all-American rocker, and the pair fell in love hard and fast. Within months, Paula found out she was pregnant, and they married a short time after the birth of their son Bradley in November of 1985. Paula Ford is now Paula Knight. During her son's early years, Paula continued to volunteer at the church. When Reverend Frank wasn't around, his son Randy would lead the church events as the associate pastor. Pastor Randy was married with 3 children of his own, but that didn't stop his reputation as a ladies' man. He was known to flirt with the church women and allegedly kept a bookmark in his Bible covered in handwritten notes of women he found attractive. One of those names was Paula. In 1987, when Paula and Dean's son was...
So, needless to say, he divorces, she divorces, and the rest was history.
Well, not personally, but absolutely the ministry does. But when you say, how do I respond to Senator Grassley, or how do I respond to
Senator Grassley, his question is, why do you get a tax break?
Well, that's an inquiry that is being done, and I have great concern, but my concern is probably not what most people would think it would be. My concern is, why is our faith being targeted at...
Oh, yeah. That's what she's worried about. Guess what happened in between elections?
In their letter, they requested verification for 3 specific questions.
That's heel, Benny Hinn.
Hinn invited to the Vatican? 2. Did Benny Hinn become a patron of the arts? 3. Did Paula White meet with Vatican officials, and did she donate money? In his reply, Mark Haydu stated, quote, "To my knowledge, Paula White or Benny Hinn were not invited to the Vatican museums in any official context, nor did we find anyone on our donors database of patrons under those names." End quote. As a result of his hotel room friendship with Paula, Benny lost a publishing deal and was
She's a hard rockin' healer.
in return of a $300,000 advance he'd been paid. Benny and his wife Suzanne divorced that year, only to get remarried 3 years later. In a sermon soon after the affair broke the news, Paula rallied against her detractors, saying, quote, "The enemy strategically plotted against you, hunted you like prey, set out to destroy you."
I didn't watch all of this.
As
I
his
just thought it was
personal
crazy.
pastor and spiritual advisor,
I just watched some
Paula
of it.
White had got lucky again. This appearance made her the first woman to deliver an invocation in the history of the United States of America. At the same time, she was
What?
appointed to the board where Jerry
What?
Falwell Jr., then president...
Wow, Jerry and the pool boy. Maybe we should go to this and get to Jerry and the pool boy after
of
this.
Liberty University before his scandal involving a pool boy, which I have also done a video
Maybe
on,
they'll cover
and
it.
pastors Robert Jeffress, Franklin Graham, and Jack Graham. Paula put this advisory council together despite U.S. federal law banning churches from endorsing political candidates or risk losing their tax-exempt status. Something she probably felt emboldened to do, being as the IRS has warned but never took away a church's tax exemption due to endorsing political candidates. But Trump had a plan for that too. In exchange for evangelical votes, he promised to abolish the 1950s Johnson Amendment, which jeopardized tax-exempt statuses for churches and religious entities if
Wow, this is Merry Christmas time for all the people out there deciding if they should tell their kids Santa's not real. Don't tell your friends. Do tell
to
your
fulfill her
friends.
own prophecy of starting 3,000 new churches and a Christian university. But that didn't happen. Instead, she put all her time and effort into supporting Trump and his campaign for a second term in the White House. In 2020, a video of Paula went viral after she called for satanic pregnancies to miscarry and criticized spells and witchcraft, going on to say, quote, "In the name of Jesus, we command all satanic pregnancies to miscarry right now. We declare that anything that's been conceived in satanic wombs, that it will miscarry. It will not be able to carry forth any plan of destruction, any plan of harm," end quote. After the video went viral, Paula claimed her comments were taken out of context. She posted on Twitter stating she was praying Ephesians 6:12. But Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12 doesn't mention demonic pregnancies. It reads, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against..."
Well, you know, people can take sides, take sides, take sides. Let's get into that herky-jerky talking motion here. And here's where it ended up with that when I highlighted Scientology and the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. And I thought, you know, I'm going to read the Bible later tonight. More than likely, I might as well just go with this because I don't feel like, you know, going to the store or something, you know, just to do it, you know. So put on a happy face. Scientology, they don't like the fakeness of the newness of their psychology is wrong, but Scientology is wrong. So that's what I'm trying to say here. And neuro-linguistic programming is new. They're a book in 1975, but I have to believe that Edward Bernays and those other people that mastered the radio and taught Hitler, Billy Graham, and Billy Sunday how to, you know, pop it, emphasize those words, you know. Pseudoscientific approach to communication. It works with this Amway and the Nexium. NLP asserts there is a connection between the neurological processes, language, and acquired behavioral patterns, and that these can be changed to achieve specific goals in life. And that's what they do. The people like the Tom Cruise and the John Travoltas, you know, their secret hidden sex lives is one thing, and their presentation in public, and they know they've been shown a lie was exposed, that Freud is wrong. And, you know, Scientology fought Prozac. Scientology are the ones that brought vaccines and Ritalin to the forefront, things that need to be studied hard, looked at hard. But they were exposing a lie to bring people into an Amway type soul-sucking situation. And neuro-linguistic programming, speaking on the radio, love bombs, how to make a cult. It's all brand new. All of those people that sell the flowers, Krishna, Krishna. But hypnotherapy, get hypnotized, do this and that, and they'll have you believing it. I can't believe Noam Chomsky was one of those guys that was one of those early developers in that methodology. What model of behavior are you striving to achieve? You know, there's models, there's modeling. They want to teach you. The book was called The Structure of Magic 1. Language and therapy. You know, that's what Nexium, you know, you can use your mind, your words to get anything you want. And then you talk the girls into love vows at their love boat. I've name dropped. I mean, if you can, if the situation calls for it. I mean, I don't run around, you know, like I met Mike Singletary, you know, I met Johnny Morris, I met a lot of famous bears, but not like I was going out of my way hunting them down. I ran into Johnny Morris at an antique shop. The other famous linebacker, Mike Singletary, he came to school to see if he wanted to send his kid to Christian Liberty. Smartly, he did not. There's that. Neuro-linguistic programming. I looked up this natural language. That's not the same thing. Let's see what YouTube says about it. Oh, the Brush Junkie put out a situation. TED Talks.
Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting, like sadness and fear and anger, and we also see these claims that NLP coaches make more money than life coaches. So again, there's a few different distinctions that have been drawn, and I imagine that many regular life coaches would not agree with these distinctions, but I don't know that for sure. I didn't really get into that side of the question. Neurolinguistic programming coaches also go by a variety of names, and I stopped looking at this when I got to.
See, look at most people replayed this part.
Neurolinguistic programming brand, and again, without an evidence base, there's really nowhere that NLP can go in terms of being used by mental health clinicians. So it's kind of segmented. It's often
something where the people are segmented, our brains are segmented. Scientology for human rights, Commission on Human Rights. The group organized media campaigns against Eli Lilly for Prozac. Well, that Lilly's been making a lot of money recently doing the jab. L. Ron Hubbard controversies, encourages the arrest and incarceration of psychiatrists for their alleged crimes of prescribing acetylsalicylic acid, the active ingredient in Prozac, I believe, has fluoride in there. Acetylsalicylic. I have you know what? I can't remember where I put my glasses, but I still remember that R12 is dichloryl difluoromethane. That's some weird stuff. I'm diminishing. I know it. That's what happens when you get old. But I still got a ways to go. Chemical imbalances. I thought that would have been highlighted, you know? Don't worry, I highlighted it. Anything else on this that looked interesting? Let's see. The front group for the Church of Scientology sponsors the organization. It's since 1993. I know that sounds like a long time ago to you guys, but I was in my, mid-30s, the children, four children, I think. That's when the tax man came around and said, we got to do something. And crudeness and paranoia, criticism of psychiatry. But I think we know now, didn't they jump the shark or when they started, changing it from, they used to classify homosexuality as a perversion and a mental illness. And then, as late as last year, weren't they saying, if a child wants to change its idea and think it was born another sex, that's probably correct. That's the evidence they needed and we're waiting to hear. And some of that's been discredited. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. You can check your own doctor and ask him or her. Or non-binary. Ask away. So here they got, 9/11, something happened. Conspiracy, assigning the responsibility to Ayman al-Zawahiri, alleging that as Osama bin Laden's personal psychiatrist, although he is actually a surgeon, he was the mastermind and had brainwashed bin Laden using pain, drugs, hypnosis, and other MK Ultra perfected techniques. I meant to be like, that was scary. You weren't scared? So I had to find a image because I wanted to study Scientology, psychiatry. I didn't get much to choose from. When you got to make a thumbnail, you got to get it out there, get it quick. I was looking for something that said Scientology. Then this one I didn't know Scientology had a cross, and I'm not even sure that's their cross, but the other ones just look stupid. Not clickbaity. Not at all. Where was the one I almost went with because I saw it in a video? I thought this one looked interesting. Psychiatry saves lives for now. But then this is something Scientology is doing. They're exposing the lie of what, go see your doctor. But a lot of other people like myself say that psychiatry is a joke. I mean, they're just like anybody else. How wrong can the White House be? Not big enough. Since the founding of the Church of Scientology, when his buddy L. Ron Hubbard was dead and he got left out of the space race and had to turn to Amway type multi-level marketing, he started a church. Scientology and psychiatry has been dominated by strong opposition by the organization against medical specialty of psychiatry and psychology, with themes relating to this opposition occurring repeatedly. L. Ron Hubbard had a complex and changing relationship with psychiatry. In 2003, untreated schizophrenia murdered his mother. 2005, Scientologist Tom Cruise strongly asserted his public opposition to psychiatry. He did. He made a good point that their medicines are not helping, and they have no proof of what a reuptake inhibitor is reuptaking or not, or why it works. That's what they say. Scientologists. So there you go. I mean, that's craziness, right? But if you go to YouTube and let's see, right now it's all leaking out about how they can use those drugs and psychiatrists and then go, yep, he's crazy, because they passed these laws and they weren't allowed to lobotomize people by the hundreds of thousands around the world. This whole flat disc. This is all the rage in the news, man. So don't think you're not getting it right now, man. That's a short.
He was working with, do you remember Jolly West?
Well, I remember Jolly West when he was, actually I met him, I think, when he was director of psychiatry at Oklahoma. And then he became director of psychiatry at UCLA.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy that killed the elephant. Yeah, he had the great story.
Yeah.
Wonderful story. He always told it. And the only reason I got to know him was because as a result of that research, the dissertation that I did actually, I got on this kind of this professional circuit with psychiatrists and basic researchers who were looking at high dose.
I'm being told that for 2 years, more than 2 years, Jolly West was running Manson. If we are to take the dates, he's meant to have met him in Haight-Ashbury in the spring of '67.
Yeah, and I don't personally think that.
But O'Neill is telling us that, and so the idea of 1952. These kind of risks are not risks that psychopaths take. They don't do things for the public good. We know that Jolly West was, I mean, he fought off court cases from Scientology. He was publicly outspoken. The American Psychiatric Association, he said, "I'm not intimidated. It's a cult, and Hubbard is a quack." So he was
right. Now, on that, by the way, if Tom O'Neill called him a psychopath, that doesn't mean that I've called him a psychopath. I've never
Eric,
thought that he's.
This is a conversation. This is a conversation about O'Neill's book. I'm not responding.
Oh, sure.
Well, I want to get more into him and Charles Manson. Isn't that what I searched? Why am I settling
He was working with
for anything less than Charles Manson, Scientology? That wasn't that good. That looks like it might be interesting.
Known mainly for his work and involvement with the MK Ultra project, a CIA mind control project in the late 1960s. In 1954, at the age of 29, with no previous post-residency fellowship or tenure-track appointment, he became a full professor and chair of psychiatry at the University of Oklahoma College of Medicine. From 1969 to 1989.
Because that's how things rolled after World War II. They were, assigning people from Operation Paperclip. You're now the head of a college. You're the head of a bank. You work on missiles. Everything was crazy. Everything's brand new. This is the last reset.
Served as chair of psychiatry at the University of California, Los Angeles School of Medicine, and the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute. West's work on brainwashing techniques allowed him to exonerate U.S. servicemen under suspicion of treason for making false confessions during the Korean War era. This brought him to the attention of the CIA. He pioneered
That means he talked the American people out of them, like, oh, those guys that were tortured and told the truth. It wasn't the truth.
Research into the use and abuse of LSD. West was also active in studying the creation and management of cults and anti-death penalty activism. The reports of biowarfare were allegedly true. We were spraying biologics and releasing insects that had been genetically altered and carried diseases in many countries, including Korea. Jolly West was also involved in evaluating high-profile cases, including that of Jack Ruby. After Jack Ruby's psychological breakdown in April 1964, shortly after his arrest for the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald, West was called in to evaluate him, and West diagnosed Ruby with acute psychosis and paranoid state. Ruby's mental state was allegedly said to have deteriorated at an accelerated rate after this visit, rendering Ruby unable to speak or the ability to defend himself in a courtroom. Jolly West was also involved with Sirhan Sirhan, the man who assassinated RFK. West claimed Sirhan was subjected to, quote, psychic driving a controversial mind-altering technique involving hypnosis or paralytic drugs. This claim added another layer of intrigue to the already complex case of the assassination. West was appointed as a brainwashing expert during the trial of Patty Hearst in 1976. West believed Hearst displayed classic signs of coercion, brainwashing, and the Stockholm effect. He even wrote a newspaper article after the trial asking President Carter to release Hearst from prison. While at Lackland in 1954, he was assigned to evaluate a case in Texas when a missing 3-year-old was found in a horrific murder. I am purposefully leaving out some sensitive details of this crime because of the sensitive nature of some of those details. However, the man accused of the crimes, by the name of Shaver, was an airman at Lackland Air Force Base with no criminal record. Shaver was found nearby the victim, dazed in a trance state, and always maintained afterward to be unable to remember the incident. The commander of the base hospital, Colonel Robert, possibly as part of his involvement in the CIA's MK-Ultra project, which explored mind control techniques. On August 3, 1962, at the Lincoln Park in Oklahoma, researchers including West injected a 14-year-old Indian elephant named Tusco with 297 milligrams of LSD, nearly 3,000 times the human recreational dose, arguably. The goal was to induce a state known as musth, an aggressive hormonal surge in male elephants. However, the experiment went tragically wrong. Within 5 minutes, Tusco began to collapse, with his mate in the enclosure with him, attempting to prop him up, as she recognized something was wrong with him. Despite efforts to revive him with the antipsychotic drugs and barbiturates, he died about an hour and 40 minutes later. No one was ever held accountable for the death of Tusco. In 1967, West led a group of researchers to the Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco. They rented an apartment and studied the hippie culture, particularly focusing on aspects related to sex and drugs. This research was part of a broader effort to understand the social and psychological impacts of the counterculture movement of the 1960s. Charles Manson and his followers were known to frequent the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic in San Francisco, where Jolly West conducted his research on LSD and drug use among hippies. History expects you to...
You know, this guy wrote songs for the Beach Boys. I want to thank you guys for sticking around. I'm checking it out. It's an hour and 17. Can you believe how much we've covered and what we've... This, for most of the people I see here, is reinforcement of things you already know. Charles Manson, Beach Boy writing, to
believe that one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. Jolly West never publicly admitted working for the CIA on MKUltra, but his work and correspondence with Sidney Gottlieb shed light on his participation. West was connected to Sidney Gottlieb through their involvement in the CIA's MKUltra project. West was a subcontractor for MKUltra Subproject 43, which involved psychophysiological studies of hypnosis and suggestibility. Sidney Gottlieb was the head of the MK.
Wow. I mean, Sidney Gottlieb, MKUltra, it always comes back to that. It always comes back to 1958. You know, the people that wanted to get paid had to swear an oath, do an allegiance. What is the biopsychiatry controversy? Dispute over which viewpoint should predominate and form a basis of psychiatric theory. How come that's not? The debate is a criticism of a claimed strict biological view. I don't know. We're learning this one together. Biological psychiatry is an approach to psychiatry that aims to understand mental disorder in terms of the chemical disorder. Biological view is chemical disorder. So they could be giving two false options. If that's the biological view, we're on the page that says biopsychiatry controversy. So this is one view. We might have to look at the other one. Or psychiatric thinking is the medical specialty devoted to the diagnosis, prevention, and treatment of deleterious mental conditions. These include various matters related to mood, behavior, cognition, perceptions, and emotion. Its critics include disparate groups such as the one group would be the Scientologists, the L. Ron Hubbards. But the movement itself, based on the view that psychiatric treatment can often be more damaging than helpful to patients. I'll correct that sentence for the computer. The term anti-psychiatry was coined in 1912, and the movement emerged. It was emergent because the Jolly West wanted it to be, and so did L. Ron Hubbard and the Amway crowd, the people that have ever tried to go, think and grow rich, those dumbasses. And I hope a lot of them have repented and could be my friend, because hey, green, go green Amway. 2003, they're still at it. It has produced reproducible abnormalities of brain structure and function. Well, who's letting them do that? Is that good or bad? Of course, they're hooking them up by computer now, right? What am I even stressing about what they did in 2003? What are they doing today, right? Elon Musk, when he wasn't running for the secretary of the State House, what was that all about? What was he doing back then? Being Robot Man. Transylvanian Halloween parties. Now all of a sudden it's like, no. I'm passing out Starlinks. I'm the good guy. I'm your helper boy. I'm the mommy. What am I? His mommy's famous in Russia. Bipolar research. Gene illusion. Causes of schizophrenia. Controversy over attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Brief history of anxiety. Yours and mine. Trauma. Look at this guy, Edgar Bothman. Look at just Bothman family, Ayn Rand, owner of Seagram's, L. Ron Hubbard, Rudolf Steiner, the cultists, Tony Robbins, I've walked on the fire, but I wouldn't do it with him. He's maniac. Oh, these guys do that neuro-linguistic things like Paula White. Remember, he's the Vanguard. He's the guy that got the small girl. This is the guy that got the Smallville girl to brand her friends and themselves right before the COVID, so we'd all forget about it, because we could only handle one Weinstein at a time. More famous cult people didn't tell them they were branding them. Even in that video we saw, they didn't talk about, it being like the Lolita Island Express airplane. So anyway, this is his excuse for a web page. Read a novel, I'm sure he was into H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, and he, claimed to be a genius. So that's what they do for no other reason than to do it. It's all brand new. Now, I want to just go over that. You've seen the Revelation 20 from so many people, and you know that here's the great white throne. I'm going to tell you, there are people out there that think that they're going to be trying to help. They've had the lie exposed that they've added 1,000 years. And I just want to, some of the things I've dealt with along the way that afterwards, then there's the new heavens and the new earth and the holy city. Remember, this is all part of the prophecy. After he saw all of the other things, he saw these. And this is where you're going to get your tears wiped away. No more death, no more sorrow. All our promises. This is the new Jerusalem. Hey, I want to show you the bride. Now it's happening, right? Because we're there with that blessed first resurrection, the ones whose names aren't blotted out. 12 gates, pearls, big. It's big, it's big, it's big. And they can't even believe how big it is. And when you just, when you do the math, it's like, wow, it's super big. And some people make a big deal. It's like they take this, I think, out of context, and they say, they will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. It's so straightforward. It's all part of the prophecy. That's what he's seeing. It goes on. Then the angel showed me river of water. This is the tree of life. Leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Every tongue, tribe, all the nations have spiritual Israel. It's a part. No longer will anything be accursed. And, we're going to get that throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads, and night will be no more. They will need no light or lamp or sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever and ever. Now, verse 6. See, it doesn't say, and then the angel showed me, or then it continued. This is like starting at chapter 1. And he said to me, these words are trustworthy and true. It's wrapping up here. The prophecies are ending. And the Lord, the God of the spirits, the prophets, has sent his angel to show his servants what must soon take place. So it's like the prophecy's over with this final, and behold, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book. Boom. Verse 8. I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. See, the prophecy's over. And yet there was a whole group of Tala who got instigated by somebody who hooked up with Tommy. I forget his name. It's something like, Jeremy 1967 or something. And they're all going like, well, wait a minute. They didn't understand that the prophecy's over, because they just read, and I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. And when I heard them, I fell down and worshiped at the feet of the angel who showed them to me. But he said, you must not do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers, the prophets, and with those who keep the words of God, keep the words of this book, worship God. And he said to me, do not seal up the words of this prophecy, talking about that prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Let the evildoer still do evil, and the filthy still be filthy, and the righteous still do right, and the holy still be holy. Behold, I am coming soon, bringing my recompense with me to repay each one for what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes so that they may have the right to the tree of life and that they may enter the city by the gates. Outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the sexually immoral and murderers and idolaters and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright and the morning star. And the Spirit and the bride said, come. And let the one who hears say, come. And let the one who is thirsty come. Let the one who desires take the water of life without price. And then they get the warning that, don't change the words. Surely I'm coming soon. Now, they made and steered off many people by saying, wait, how come there's still evildoers outside? Oh, no. Well, there's evildoers, and they're saying, and this is the New Jerusalem. And they don't understand. And I told them time and time again, don't you see he ended the prophecy? And now it's like chapter 1. It's him talking about, hey, it's me, John. This is something happened, and I'm going to tell you it. And then when it's over, hey, I just told you what it was. But he was showing them that they were what was going to soon take place. And they were twisting it and saying, no, the little season's over, so's the judgment. This is something else. Because the danger that you have to be aware of is that when you start what is not a denomination, it is a whole new theology. There are going to be more and more people that are going to tell me, hey, thanks for the whole golden age past, reading the Bible like it was written to them, but I'll take it from here. That is one of the things that I don't think the Lord wants to happen. I think they want us to get this fleshed out together on a very narrow road of realizing we're close. We can only reveal what is lifted. We can't go beyond and start speculating. There are things in play right now. Good things could happen because Trump was elected. That doesn't mean it's going to be okay. The scripture doesn't say it works out for us. It says it's an encompassing about until they got us. And then a fire comes down and rescues. This not a restoration. It's not a rapture situation. It's the accepting of the cognitive dissonance that it seems to be what is that they say when everything else is all weighed and the most simplest thing is the Bible proves, the scars on the earth prove, the melted mountains prove, the added 1,000 years prove, and so many other things prove that the mud flood was the Armageddon. Then there was the reaping, and then there was this short season on a flat earth nation with its golden age past. Me and my friends will never tell you anything else. Why would we? Not because we've been trying to get your money or get your wives in bed. I think a decade is long enough to prove that hasn't been our agenda. Not even a little bit. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Noch ein May.